Elijah Cross was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, on a cold November morning. His mother worked double shifts at a diner. His father had left before he could remember the sound of a steady voice. From the beginning, the world taught him that no one was coming to help. He grew up in the narrow streets of North Tulsa, where the sidewalks cracked under the weight of old tires, abandoned shopping carts, and broken promises. At 12, he had learned to fight. At 14, he had learned to run. By 16, he had learned to vanish. He wasn't fast enough to escape all mistakes. One night, he got caught in a drive-by that wasn't his. Gunfire tore through the block. A car flipped. People died. Police came. Reports were written. Witnesses lied. Elijah wasn't the shooter. But he was there. At 17, he was arrested. Charged with armed robbery and murder, though he had neither lifted a weapon nor fired a shot. During the interrogation, officers slammed him against walls, pulled his hair, broke his ribs, and left him with bruises no camera ever caught. Confessions were coerced. Papers were signed. He was sentenced to 20 years, meant as an example, as a warning. Prison taught him silence. Not the quiet of meditation. The quiet of survival and observation. He learned names, faces, habits, how the system moved, how the law spoke louder than truth. By the time he was released at 25, Elijah had memorized everyone who had pushed him into that cell. Every officer, every detective, every prosecutor. He walked out without fanfare. No one came to meet him. No one noticed. The streets swallowed him, just as they had swallowed his innocence. 2 weeks later, a former officer was found dead in his car on the highway. The windshield was shattered. The airbags had deployed. The body was slumped in the driver's seat. Cause of death listed as an accident. Nobody questioned it. A week after that, a detective who had testified against him vanished. His apartment was empty. The TV was on. Dinner was half-eaten. His car remained in the parking lot, keys in the ignition. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Just gone. Elijah Cross didn't run. He didn't hide. He moved like a shadow through the city. He left no fingerprints. He left no evidence. Only consequences. Those who had crossed him, even indirectly, began disappearing, dying, vanishing in ways that seemed ordinary until you counted the pattern. And the city, the police, the system, none of them could explain it. Every disappearance, every death, every missing person tied back, somehow, to that night when he was wrongly condemned. Every detail, every movement, calculated, silent, ruthless. Elijah Cross wasn't a monster in their eyes yet. He was invisible. But he had begun to collect his debt. And debt, once it starts counting, doesn't forgive mistakes. Elijah Cross entered Lexington Correctional Facility at dawn. The walls were grey, the air thick with disinfectant and fear. He smelled it before he saw it, the combination of sweat, bleach, and broken bodies. He learned quickly. Prison was not about strength, it was about survival, memory, and patience. The guards knew him only as number 417. They didn't care who he was. They cared about the schedule. Lights on, lights off, meals, counts, work details. But they did notice the bruises on his face and ribs. They assumed compliance. They assumed submission. They were wrong. The first week, Elijah was beaten for a minor infraction, talking back to a guard. Hands against the concrete floor. Face slammed into walls. Bones bruised. He never cried. He memorized the officer's badge number, the shape of his knuckles, the rhythm of his steps. Every detail became fuel. Every pain became calculation. He learned the names of other inmates, too. The ones who could hurt him. The ones who could be useful. He noted alliances. He noted weaknesses. A prison is a city of predators wearing each other's skin, and Elijah observed every movement. Nothing escaped him. In the second month, he began to plan. Not revenge yet. Just understanding. How officers moved during rounds, which corridors had blind spots, where the cameras were broken, which doors were rarely checked. He remembered the faces of those who had condemned him, the prosecutor who had smiled while calling him a liar, the detective who had punched him, the officers who had written false reports. Names. Faces. Positions. Timing. Time passed. years stacking one over the other. Each year hardened him. Each year sharpened the memory of injustice. The prison made him quiet, almost invisible, but it also trained him. By the time he was eligible for release, Elijah was not the same boy who had been slammed against walls. He was calculated, precise, and cold. When the day came, the gates opened. He walked out. The sun didn't feel like freedom, it felt like a signal. The city didn't know him yet. They only knew the law had failed. And now, he carried the knowledge to make them pay. He returned to Tulsa silently. He did not call anyone. He did not announce himself. But he began to watch. Patterns. Routines. Those who had ruined his life now had schedules. Cars. Houses. Offices. And when he struck the first time, it was impossible to trace. The officer who had beaten him during the interrogation was found dead in his car on the highway. The windshield shattered. Airbags deployed. Cause. Accident. No one saw him. No one suspected him. But Elijah Cross had begun collecting. And the debt had just started. Elijah Cross returned to Tulsa like a ghost. He didn't speak to anyone. He didn't leave traces. He rented a small, unremarkable apartment on the edge of the city. No lights at night. No social media. No phone. He didn't need it. The city's own rhythm was enough to guide him. The first target was Officer Daniels, the man who had slammed him against the walls during interrogation. Daniels left his house every morning at 7, drove the same route to the precinct. At 9:15 a.m., his car was found crumpled against a guardrail 2 miles outside town. Daniels' body slumped over the steering wheel. Cause of death. Accident. No witnesses. No surveillance. Just a wrecked car and the quiet of morning. 2 weeks later, Detective Harper disappeared. He was last seen entering a diner for lunch. His apartment was untouched. His car remained in the parking lot, keys in the ignition. No calls. No notes. Just gone. The case was filed as missing person, no leads. Then came Prosecutor Langston, the one who had smiled while reading the sentence. Security cameras showed him entering his office at 8:03 p.m. The next morning, he was found dead in the building's bathroom. Cause of death. Undetermined. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. Nothing. Elijah moved like smoke. He never lingered, never returned. Every action was silent, deliberate. He didn't seek fame. He didn't leave notes. He didn't care about witnesses. He was invisible. The city police began to notice patterns only after the third incident. Every victim had been involved in the case that imprisoned him. Every death was precise. Every disappearance linked back to the night he was wrongly condemned. But no proof. No evidence. No witnesses to place him there. Panic spread quietly through the precinct. Officers changed schedules. Investigators started skipping old cases. Even seasoned detectives looked over their shoulders. Elijah's presence wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive. It was inevitable. By the end of the month, 3 more former officers vanished. One found dead in a remote parking lot. Another missing for weeks, eventually discovered drowned in a river. The third disappeared without a trace. The city began murmuring. Someone was taking revenge, but no one knew who or how. Elijah Cross had started a war without making a sound. A war that everyone feared, yet none could prove existed. He didn't need to. Fear itself was the weapon. And every target he chose reminded the city, silently and coldly, that justice had failed once, and now it was coming for those who had enforced it. The city began to notice. Not immediately. Not openly. But officers whispered in halls. Detectives double-checked schedules. Prosecutors reviewed old files. Something was happening, and it wasn't random. The first clue. Every victim traced back to the case that had sent Elijah Cross to prison. Officers, detectives, prosecutors, those connected to his arrest and conviction. They vanished, died, or were found in circumstances that made no sense. Traffic accidents where no other vehicles existed. Apartments locked from the inside with occupants gone. Bodies discovered in places that defied logic. The police tried to find a pattern. Logs, schedules, cameras, witness statements. Nothing. It was as if someone moved through the city without touching it, leaving only consequences. Panic began to ripple through the precinct. Officers refused to travel alone. Detectives swapped shifts. Security measures doubled. But Elijah was always one step ahead. The fear wasn't just about death. It was about not knowing when, where, or how it would happen next. One by one, the city's system began to crack under the weight of invisible terror. Officer Franklin, last seen on patrol, was later found dead in the river. Cause of death: undetermined. Detective Monroe disappeared from his apartment, keys in the lock, coffee on the counter. Nothing else. Prosecutor Whitman's car was discovered overturned on a remote road. No other vehicles. No skid marks. No witnesses. Every case reported as an accident, disappearance, or natural cause. The public never suspected a link. Only those who had known Elijah's story quietly understood the connection. The investigators assigned to the cases began to see a cold, methodical intelligence behind the chaos. Whoever was responsible knew their routines, their habits, their weaknesses. Nothing was forced. Nothing was sloppy. Every move was precise, silent, and deliberate. Yet the police never caught him. He left no evidence. No fingerprints. No DNA. No trace of entry or exit. Every target was struck when they were alone, vulnerable, and when no one would see the first movement. By the end of the month, the precinct was a cage of nerves. Officers didn't know if the next disappearance would be their own. Investigators refused to discuss the case openly. The pattern itself became a weapon, sowing fear, distrust, and paranoia among those who had once judged Elijah Cross. The city learned something crucial. Justice had a shadow now, and it moved without mercy. Elijah Cross didn't kill for pleasure. He didn't leave signs. He didn't care about fame. He executed his vengeance like clockwork, and the law had no hand to stop it. The pattern was clear, and everyone connected to his past crime and the failure of the system would eventually face it. The city waited for an end. It never came. Elijah Cross had struck again. By now, the whispers had spread beyond the precinct. Officers, prosecutors, and detectives knew the pattern. They knew the targets. They tried to protect themselves, to anticipate, to hide. But Elijah was never where they expected him. He was always somewhere else, unseen, untouchable, inevitable. Officer Reynolds was found dead in his car, parked at the edge of a deserted parking lot. No skid marks. No signs of struggle. The cause: accident. Detective Larkin vanished during a shift. Her belongings remained at the station. Her apartment untouched. No clues. Prosecutor Daniel's body was discovered in a hotel room 3 towns away. Doors locked. Windows closed. Nothing out of place. The police tried everything. Surveillance. Sting operations. Undercover work. Phone taps. Nothing worked. Elijah left no trace. The media reported accidents, disappearances, and strange deaths. No one connected them. Only those who remembered the old case, the one that had condemned Elijah Cross, realized the pattern. Every victim had been involved in that night, that courtroom, that injustice. The city's fear became invisible. Officers avoided being alone. Detectives avoided making decisions. Prosecutors hesitated. Every step forward felt like walking into a trap that could strike anywhere, anytime. And Elijah Cross? He moved quietly, like a shadow through the streets he once knew. He didn't celebrate. He didn't taunt. He didn't speak. He simply collected the debt owed to him. One by one, silently, precisely. Months passed. The bodies and disappearances continued, but the public never knew the truth. The police officially labeled it as unrelated incidents. Case files were closed, evidence archived, leads exhausted. Yet the names of those who had wronged him lingered in memory. For each, the city had seen only the consequences, never the hand that delivered them. Elijah Cross remained a ghost, a reckoning that could not be stopped, a reminder that justice, once broken, finds its own way back. In the files, a single note remained, unsigned. Suspect acts from personal motives. Identity unknown. Case unresolved. The city moved on. The files were shelved. The victims forgotten in official records. But anyone who knew the story understood. Elijah Cross had delivered his verdict. And for those who survived, the fear never ended.